intractable hip pain. They usually have a degenerative cause that is slow moving. It takes years to develop. But ultimately, they get to a point where they have trouble bearing weight, they have trouble taking care of the activities of daily life, and essentially they have a lot of pain that prevents them from enjoying life. And so hip replacement is an excellent solution for that scenario.
Now, sometimes you can do a partial hip replacement versus a total. What is the difference?
So partial hip replacement...
Yeah, you had to be on pain pills. How did that not grab you? Or did it grab you a little bit? Have you ever been scared about any of that?
Addiction-wise.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it addicting for the chemical effect, or are you just taking it? Because I was having my...
We celebrate them for their championships, their iconic plays, their superhuman athleticism. But the greatest battles many NBA legends have ever faced didn't happen on a court under bright lights. They happened in silent hospital rooms, in the privacy of their homes, in the quiet, terrifying spaces of their own minds. These are fights with opponents no amount of training could prepare them for. These are the stories the highlight reels never show, the stories of pain, fear, and survival against the deadliest of odds. This is the untold truth about the NBA icons who stared down life-threatening diseases and fought their way back. Stories so powerful they redefine what it means to be a legend. Imagine being the most physically dominant force on the planet, a man so large, so powerful that the league had to change its rules because of you. That was Shaquille O'Neal in his prime, an unstoppable hurricane of dunks and dominance. To the world, he was invincible, but at the height of his reign, a silent internal assassin was at work. In the early 2000s, Shaq began experiencing persistent nagging pains in his legs and feet. For a giant man putting superhuman stress on his joints, it was easy to dismiss as the cost of doing business. But the pain worsened. His mobility, a terrifying part of his game for a man his size, began to subtly fade. Doctors initially struggled to find the cause. It wasn't until more specialized testing was done that they discovered the truth. Shaq was suffering from a rare and serious condition called osteonecrosis, specifically of the hip. Osteonecrosis, also known as bone death, occurs when blood flow to a bone is interrupted. Without blood, the bone tissue dies and can collapse. For an athlete whose entire world was built on explosive power from his lower body, it was a career death sentence. The diagnosis was devastating. Specialists presented him with grim options, including the potential for a full hip replacement, a procedure that would have ended his career instantly. Shaq faced a choice: retire as a reigning champion or embark on a painful, uncertain, and experimental path to save his career. He chose the fight. His treatment was grueling. It involved a then innovative surgical procedure to drill into the dead bone in his hip to stimulate new blood flow, followed by an excruciating rehabilitation process. The pain was constant. The workouts were brutal. For over a year, the public saw a diminished Shaq, a step slower, often sitting out games for maintenance. What they didn't see was the man fighting through searing pain just to walk, battling the very real fear that his body, the source of his legend, was permanently betraying him. His comeback was not to his former otherworldly dominance, but it was a triumph of will. He retooled his game, relying more on savvy and sheer mass. He won another championship with the Miami Heat in 2006, not as the sole destroyer of worlds, but as a pivotal warrior. That title was won not just on talent, but on a resilience forged in quiet, private agony. Shaq defeated an enemy no defender ever could, the literal death of his own bone. He didn't just play through pain, he resurrected a part of himself that medicine said was gone forever.
Something like that, right? Like I put the work in and put the work in for a long time, and so you can analyze, say whatever you want to about it, but for me, it's not hard because it's the work, and not everybody want to do the work. A lot of people want to talk about it and analyze it and do this and do that about it, but all I do is put my head down and do the work, and when you do that, I can live with it.
Direct anterior total hip arthroplasty is a surgery done to reduce hip pain and improve movement in people with arthritis. The damaged bone is removed, and new parts are placed using special imaging tools for accuracy. The thigh bone is...
If Shaquille O'Neal's battle was against a structural collapse, the next story is one of a systemic, invisible war. It belongs to a player whose brilliance was defined by control, precision, and an almost psychic understanding of the game's flow. Chris Paul, the point god. For Chris, the problem wasn't a localized pain, it was a mystery that affected his entire being. During the 2020 offseason, at the apex of his career resurgence with the Phoenix Suns, Chris Paul began to feel off. It wasn't an injury, it was a pervasive fatigue that sleep couldn't fix, a mental fog that film study couldn't clear. He felt winded doing routine drills. His legendary conditioning seemed to abandon him. Concerned, he underwent a barrage of tests. The diagnosis, when it came, was a shock: testicular cancer. The word cancer silences everything. For an athlete at the highest level, whose body is his temple and his instrument, the diagnosis is a particular kind of terror. The treatment path was immediate and aggressive: surgery to remove the cancerous testicle. The procedure was successful, but the battle was far from over. The physical recovery from surgery was one thing, but the psychological and emotional toll was a deeper opponent. Chris Paul faced this battle in near total secrecy. The public announcement was a succinct, brave statement about a successful surgery and a full recovery. What it concealed was the profound uncertainty of that period, the waiting for pathology reports to ensure the cancer hadn't spread, the quiet fear before every follow-up scan, the exhausting process of regaining not just NBA-level fitness, but rebuilding the unshakable confidence that is a point guard's currency. He had to lead a team to the NBA Finals while privately wondering if his body was truly healed. His comeback was nothing short of miraculous. He didn't just return, he spearheaded the Phoenix Suns' Cinderella run to the 2021 NBA Finals, playing with a ferocity and clarity that defied his private ordeal. Every no-look pass, every clutch steal, every leadership moment on that stage was a declaration of victory in a war fans never saw. He fought an enemy that threatens mortality itself and returned not just to play, but to orchestrate a team within inches of a championship. Chris Paul's legacy is one of assists and steals, but its foundation is a harder, quieter win. Staring down a disease that has ended countless lives and stealing back his own future with the same relentless grit he shows on the court.
Instill in you?
My mom and grandfather instilled in me is never let the other man outwork you. If they tell you you're not good enough, outwork him. Or give it your last energy that this guy don't outwork you. She said, if you have to die working harder than that other guy, so be it. But that was instilled in me. And just the history and everything like that, growing up in...
But I'll have a new job. And I want to make sure everybody understands what the new job is. I'm no longer a coach. I'm El Jefe.
Our next story shifts from the hardwood to the sideline, to a man whose strategic mind shaped dynasties. Gregg Popovich is an icon, 5-time NBA champion, the winningest coach in regular season history, a figure of granite-like intensity and sharp wit. But in 2015, that granite faced a crack that had nothing to do with basketball. During a routine physical, doctors discovered that Popovich was suffering from transient ischemic attacks, often called mini-strokes. A TIA is a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain. It's a major warning sign, a flashing red siren from the body indicating a high risk of a full, devastating stroke. For a man whose life's work was cerebral, constructing game plans, reading opponents, managing personalities, the threat to his cognitive function was a direct assault on his identity. The public knew only that Popovich had to miss a handful of games for a minor medical procedure. The description was a massive understatement. The procedure was likely a serious intervention to address the issue, such as the placement of a stent to open a blocked artery. The recovery was a mandatory forced stillness for a man in constant motion. He was a coach who controlled every detail, now forced to surrender control to doctors, to his body, and to the terrifying uncertainty of his own health. The mental battle was as fierce as the physical one. Strokes and TIAs are deeply psychological events. They confront you with your own fragility. For Popovich, a former intelligence officer with a stoic, disciplined demeanor, this vulnerability was a foreign land. He had to confront the possibility that the sharpness, the memory, the quick thinking that defined him could be permanently dimmed. His return to the sideline was a triumph of will over fear. He didn't just come back, he led the Spurs to a 67-win season. But those who knew him saw a subtle shift. He spoke with a renewed public candor about the importance of family, of perspective, of life beyond the game. The brush with mortality didn't soften his edge, but it deepened his humanity. He had faced an opponent that didn't care about his championship rings or his playbook, an opponent that attacks the very command center of a person. And he beat it. Every timeout he's called since, every practice he's run, every piece of wisdom he's dispensed has been delivered by a man who knows he's coaching on borrowed and fiercely defended time. His legacy is in the trophies, but his greatest victory is in the continued clarity of his mind, a victory won in silence, away from the roar of the crowd.
A respect thing. And then when they was talking about should he go into the Hall of Fame,
yeah,
I don't think they were necessarily talking about his stats. I think personally, I think people was afraid to death on what he might wear or say. But no, seriously. And I think he handled it very, very well.
Yeah, I thought that when they were talking about him
This story is about a legend whose very nickname promised durability. The mailman, Karl Malone. For 19 seasons, he was the embodiment of relentless physical power. He delivered night after night, missing only a handful of games, building a mythos of indestructibility. But in 2004, after retiring and transitioning to a life of hunting and outdoor exertion, the myth met a brutal reality. While undergoing a routine physical exam for a hunting license, doctors made a horrifying discovery. Malone was diagnosed with afibrillation, a serious and potentially fatal heart arrhythmia. In his condition, his heart could have simply stopped beating at any moment during the intense physical strain of the activities he loved. The diagnosis was a shock that recontextualized his entire life. The Iron Man had been playing for years, and now living with a literal ticking time bomb in his chest. The treatment was immediate and invasive. Open heart surgery. Imagine the psychological whiplash. This was a man who had endured the hardest fouls, played through broken bones and torn muscles, whose body was a monument to toughness. Now he was lying on an operating table, his sternum sawed open, his heart stopped and placed on a bypass machine so surgeons could fix it. The violence of the cure mirrored the silent violence of the disease. The recovery was a humbling new kind of fight. This wasn't rehabbing a basketball injury. This was learning to breathe again, to walk again, with a mending chest that felt like it could burst open. The mental challenge was profound. For an athlete, heart surgery fundamentally alters your relationship with your own body. Every elevated heartbeat, every pang of exertion is met with a flicker of fear. The invincible mailman had to come to terms with a profound vulnerability. Karl Malone survived. He returned to his active life, but as a different man. He became a vocal advocate for heart health, especially among large-framed athletes. His story serves as a terrifying lesson. The most dangerous opponents aren't always the ones on the court. They can be hidden within, waiting for years. Malone's legacy of durability is now shadowed by a greater, more important truth, a legacy of survival. He didn't just deliver points, he delivered himself from the brink, proving that even the strongest hearts need saving, and that the toughest battles often begin when the final buzzer has already sounded.
I can never express the gratitude that I have for so many people caring about our organization and sending me thoughts, prayers, that sort of thing.
Sharing the floor with Steph Curry tonight, that guy who kind of like pioneered the three-point shot in the NBA. What was it like to share the floor with him, with a guy that you're probably going to be compared to for the rest of your career?
I don't know about that.
Our final on-court story belongs to a player defined not by overwhelming power, but by grace, intelligence, and an unshakable calm. Alonzo Mourning. In 2000, at the peak of his powers as the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year and a franchise cornerstone for the Miami Heat, Mourning's world came crashing down with a single phone call. Routine blood work from a team physical revealed catastrophic news. He had focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, FSGS, a rare and serious kidney disease. The diagnosis was a death sentence for his career and a grave threat to his life. FSGS attacks the kidney's filtering units, leading to kidney failure. The initial treatment involved powerful medications with brutal side effects: mood swings, bloating, a weakened immune system. The vibrant, chiseled athlete vanished, replaced by a puffy, fatigued version of himself. He attempted a courageous but ill-fated comeback in 2000-2001, but his body was losing the war. By 2003, his kidneys were failing. He was placed on the national transplant list, requiring dialysis just to stay alive. The man who patrolled the paint as a titan was now tethered to a machine for survival. Then, in a twist of profound love and sacrifice, a miracle arrived. It wasn't from an anonymous donor. It was from his own cousin, Jason Cooper, who provided a perfect match. The transplant surgery in 2003 was a success, but it was only the beginning of another grueling fight. His body could have rejected the new organ. The anti-rejection medications he would need for the rest of his life came with their own risks, including increased susceptibility to illness. He had to rebuild his body for a second time, now with a foreign organ at its core and a chemical cocktail in his veins. Alonzo Mourning's second comeback is one of the most extraordinary in sports history. He didn't just return to play, he returned to dominate. He won an NBA championship with the Miami Heat in 2006, providing crucial, fierce minutes off the bench. His block on Dallas's Jason Terry in the closing moments of Game 6 is an iconic championship moment, forged by a man whose body was a medical marvel. He played with a ferocity that screamed gratitude for every second on the court. His battle was public, raw, and incredibly brave. He transformed his personal nightmare into a platform, becoming a relentless advocate for organ donation and kidney disease awareness. Zoe didn't just defeat a disease, he turned his survival into a life-saving mission for others. His legacy isn't just the blocked shots, it's the countless lives saved because he had the courage to fight in the spotlight. We watch them for the dunks, the crossovers, the championship parades. We measure their greatness in rings and stats and iconic moments frozen in time. But as these stories reveal, the truest measure of a legend is often found not in the public glory, but in the private fight. These men, Shaq, CP3, Pop, Malone, Mourning, faced opponents that no scouting report could prepare them for: bone death, cancer, strokes, heart failure, kidney disease. These are battles fought in sterile rooms under fluorescent lights, where the only cheers are from loved ones holding their breath. They are wars of attrition against fear, against pain, against the terrifying possibility of a life and identity forever altered. Their victories on the court are etched in record books, but their victories off it are etched in something far more permanent: the simple, profound fact of their continued existence. Every time Shaq laughed on television, every time Chris Paul directed a playoff offense, every time Popovich drew up a game-winning play, every time Malone swung an axe on his ranch, every time Mourning hugged his children, they were living, breathing testaments to a different kind of toughness. These stories forever change how we see them. They are no longer just superheroes in shorts. They are human beings of unimaginable resilience. They remind us that the strength we admire in athletes, the discipline, the perseverance, the heart, isn't just for sport, it's for life. And when life delivers its hardest foul, that's when we see what a legend is really made of. So the next time you watch a game, remember, you're not just watching talent, you're watching survivors. The final question isn't about who's the greatest of all time, it's this: after hearing their stories, who do you believe is the strongest of all time? Let us know in the comments. If these powerful, untold stories of resilience matter to you, please subscribe. We dedicate our channel to finding the real heroes behind the headlines.